New research is amplifying the conversation around drought and climate change. A study published in the journal Geophysical Research Letters confirms drought feeds rising temperatures during heat waves, and those rising temperatures in turn feed drought. Let's bring the Line Opinion panel back in to talk through this one. These scientists say this is the first evidence of something that had been hypothetical to this point. And Michael, would this spark more focus towards climate change and climate action? I mean, it seems easy to grasp what these folks are trying to tell us here. Will that land in folks' minds in a way that we need to make some serious change here?
All I can say is one would hope so.
Yeah, I hear that.
Because, this is a manifestation of something we've never seen. And they pointed out the fact that the number of deaths in the Southwest in 2021 were significantly increased. And it's something, again, we've seen droughts and they tend to, as they referenced, they tend to be slow in forming. But these flash, as they've referenced, flash droughts that come on fast and are extremely hotter and more deadly. There's an intersection between those. Well, first of all things are connected in terms of people and the environment and nature and temperatures. And if we think we're having issues here, one needs to just look at what's happening globally as well in terms of Africa and many other countries, even European countries, where the temperatures are rising significantly.
That's right.
So we're all a part of that. We're all the global environment is interconnected and interrelated. So anything that happens someplace else doesn't impact us.
That's
what
right.
We do impacts other parts. So I mean, it's what we need to know. The question, as you've referenced, are we going to be motivated to action? Are we actually going to do something? And with the decision that the Supreme Court just made impacting EPA and their ability to regulate what is going on, that doesn't help this, and that doesn't help us.
Sophie, let me ask you to pick up that point on the Supreme Court decision that surprised a lot of folks, moving to limit the power of the EPA, as Michael mentioned, and other regulatory agencies. I should throw that in there too. This opens the door for higher pollution rates, which contribute to climate change. What's your reaction to that ruling?
Yeah, I mean, I think it does. It does some very strange things to our to regulations, not just the environmental arena. I mean, this particular decision was focused on the EPA and Environmental Clean Water Act, et cetera, Clean Air Act. Pardon me. But what does the court signal? I think that as we read the tea leaves, it signals that there will be other regulatory bodies who also may not have the kind of direction from Congress that the Supreme Court is now indicating it wants to do their jobs, and other agencies that we really rely on. One of the things that's tough right now, and I think this reflects the sort of, I'd say, the big C conservatism of the current court, is that in our current legislative, with our essentially deadlock more or less in the Senate, with the filibuster, et cetera, U.S. Senate, the ability of Congress to come back and say, by enacting these pieces of legislation, by saying, EPA, we want you to do these things, other regulatory agencies, we want you to do these things, we want explicitly, right, the things that the court has called into question. In a deadlocked situation like we see right now in Congress, can those changes be made? I doubt it. It certainly could be very difficult, despite the fact that these acts typically, come with bipartisan support. Historically, that's not the case today. And so what the court has essentially put in place is you have to make these changes in a context in which we may not be able to make those changes.
Interesting point there. And Merritt, I'll remind, this it hitched around the agency's ability to regulate greenhouse gas emissions. So think about it from what Sophie just said. If the Congress is going to have to green light whether these folks can actually issue caps or not, That's going to be a difficulty, it would seem to me, because legal analysts have been poring over the controversial decision from the court. Regardless of political or social ideology, it's clear the conservative majority is putting the onus on Congress to find legislative solutions to these issues. Do you agree with that stance? Just right there, that first things first?
Well, I think politicizing science is always a terrible idea. And I really would encourage climate deniers in my party to take the emotion out of it and just look at it from a very realistic and pragmatic point of view. The climate on this planet has always been changing. There have been ice ages, there have been warming trends, there have been great droughts in the Southwest. I mean, some of the larger previous cultures collapsed because of climate change. Climate change is a real scientific proven thing.
That's right.
And then if you look at the environment today, where the war in Ukraine is really upsetting global grain markets. The Russians are stealing Ukrainian grain and smuggling it out, selling it to Syria. That puts U.S. farmers at great risk, trying to figure out how much to plant, what to plant. They bought it at higher prices because they thought they were going to be able to sell it at higher prices. Well, if the Russians dump a lot of grain, these are all pragmatic, realistic business situations. Then if we have a catastrophic weather event because of climate change, which is a real scientific thing, we have a problem. So, take your knee-jerk emotional reaction out of it and look at it pragmatically. This is what we need to do. And so to expect Congress to do anything, I mean, just look at for 5 decades trying to get something done about immigration. That's not going to happen.
Good point.
So are they going to do something about environmental regulation? I think not. They need to act quickly on cybersecurity. That ain't going to happen. So no, I think that was, again, judicial activism that we really certainly did not need at this point in time.
Yep. Michael, I want to circle back to something that Sophie mentioned, because when you really think about it, the changing role of all the regulatory agencies as a whole in this country are kind of be up against it here, because if you're going to have to go find 3 or 4 or 5 friendlies in Congress to lobby for you, what are you as a regulatory agency at that point? You're supposed to be outside of that whole mess. You're not supposed to be lobbying Congress people because that's what it's going to come down to when you really think about it. A lot of backroom dealing, a lot of backroom conversations. Am I off on this? I mean, I can't see it going any other way.
Well, one of the other agencies that's referenced in this action is CDC.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean,
right.
We're not done with COVID. People may not be wearing their masks, and as somebody who is a public health professional and just coming off of 7 weeks with an experience with the new COVID variant, let me tell you, I mean, I didn't have to go to the hospital, but I wouldn't want anybody I know to ever have to go through that experience. Okay. And if you hamstring these agencies that were established, have been established, long-standing history of protecting and responding to emergencies of various kinds, and now we're going to have, now we're looking at the Supreme Court to provide guidance, or we're looking at the national the Congress. I think, we're kind of in a downward spiral if we don't allow those agencies that were established to protect us all to function.
Why are we muddying the separation of powers?
Thank you.
And why does this court not sort of follow its own kind of established ideology, which is, what was the intention at the time of the legislation?
That's right.
I mean, that's the historical conservative stance. And if the intent at the time of the legislation was that this was enough, then why is it not still enough?
That's a good point there. Sophie,
we've got the big questions happening.
That's right. Hey, Sophie, real quick, just I got to get this in. We know New Mexico, other Southwest states are disproportionately feeling the impacts of climate change. Where do we fit into this conversation on the national scale? Are we going to have to get together with Texas, Arizona, Nevada, and put on some kind of front here?
Hey, let me throw California into that list,
Of course.
because California has so much market power. And I think what we're going to be looking at least in the near term, and the near term is probably pretty long, is state and local action to try to combat climate change and take care of these other issues. And California, as we know, is the 800-pound gorilla there. New Mexico is fortunate that I would say that our environmental goals very much are in alignment with California's. And so, we're a small state with relatively little power, legislatively in the Congress, but working with the other states that share our goals and our interests, I think can lend us a larger voice.
You can feel it happening already. Merritt knows about this well. There are folks in the business of coalescing people together to make groups and associations to put a united front on. You can see a whole new wave of that coming when it comes to this with this decision. It's going to be very difficult. Thank you to our Line Opinion panel once again. We'll be back in less than 10 minutes to talk about a new ballot initiative that would take money from the Land Grant Permanent Fund and invest it in education. But first, a look inside the newly redesigned exhibit at the Museum of Indian Arts and Culture in Santa Fe. It's called Here, Now, and Always, and highlights Indigenous people of the Southwest, showcasing never-before-seen items and state-of-the-art technology. But it also sets the standard for collaborations with the Native American community. Mexico in Focus correspondent Antonia Gonzalez got a sneak peek before it opened to the public this month.